single-family house an American icon faces an uncertain future. A man is not a whole and complete man, Walt Whitman claimed in 1856, unless he owns a house and the ground it stands on. In a little more than a century, the single-family house helped make America something new in the world, a nation of suburban homeowners. Cape or ranch, colonial or contemporary, the house, more even than the car, the skyscraper or the Hollywood movie, is the American idol. But now, demographic, political and meteorological changes are calling the future of the single-family house into question. Its critics say that the house is too sprawling in a time of climate change, too expensive in a time of economic inequality and just too boring for many city-dwelling millennials, that more of us should live closer together, in neighborhoods near mass transit, with less need to drive and more chance to interact. Its defenders say the single-family house is what most people want, if not what professional planners, social reformers and academics, the elites, want for them. And they say that construction of new houses on empty land at the edge of the metropolis offers working and middle-class people their best shot at the American dream. But the image of the house is clouded by Houston's experience with Harvey, by the need in California and elsewhere to both cut greenhouse gas emissions and build more housing, and by the millennial generation's looming decision about where to settle. If Whitman was the poet of the single-family house, its polemicist is Joel Kotkin, a former East Coast newspaperman who now lives and teaches college in suburban Southern California. 3 years ago, he founded a Houston-based think tank, the Center for Opportunity Urbanism, to extol the low-regulation, low-tax school of real estate development. He says the future of American cities can be summed up in 5 letters, DEXAS. Last year Houston and Dallas were number 1 and 2 nationally in single-family building permits, with about 35,000 each. The next closest metro was Atlanta, at 25,000. Nationally, single-family home construction, eclipsed by multifamily starts after the housing market crash a decade ago, regained primacy 2 years ago. Single-family home builders' confidence hasn't been as consistently high since 2005. Homeownership has stabilized around 64%. Kotkin says that although people love its space, privacy and convenience, the house is under attack as an environmental hazard by those who take us back, he says sarcastically, to the good old days when we were herded together in tenements. He calls renters unable to afford a house the new serf class. Kotkin and his colleagues disdain many of the building and land use rules that, according to the National Association of Home Builders, add $80,000 to the average house price. And he hates measures such as urban containment boundaries, like one that seeks to limit sprawl outside Portland, or he likes sprawl, which he says signifies a healthy housing market. Construction of houses on empty, relatively cheap land at the edge of a metro area, greenfield development of forests, prairie, desert and farmland, keeps down prices throughout the rest of the metro market. Only sprawl, he says, can deliver the American dream. Houston is the nation's largest city with no municipal zoning. The county in which it sits has logged the nation's highest population growth in 8 of the past 9 years. The metro motto could be, when in doubt, build. As a result, much of Greater Houston, an area 3 times the size of Greater London with half the population, has been paved over, compromising the region's capacity to absorb storm rain and flood water. Houstonians, Chronicle columnist Lisa Falkenberg wrote after Harvey, have come to tolerate and even expect policies that favor developer profits over public safety. An installment in a Chronicle series on the flooding said Houston's laissez-faire development formula suddenly had a death toll in the dozens and a price tag in the billions. Harvey, it concluded, was Houston's reckoning. And maybe not just Houston's. Another columnist, Mike Snyder, wrote that developers all over the country are rethinking the nature of suburban development with an eye toward greater density and environmental sustainability. Even Minneapolis is thinking about allowing fourplexes in areas zoned single-family residential. Kotkin, however, says a wave of anti-suburban jihadism sparked by Harvey would scapegoat developers, Even though the epic rains would have created a disaster regardless of how Houston was developed, and even though the areas with the most sprawl did not suffer the worst flooding, it seems unlikely Houston will throw its housing formula out with the floodwater. It's also unlikely that formula will go unchanged. Already, the city and county have raised mandatory house elevations and required more homes to have flood insurance, which will make new ones more expensive. This is an inflection point for Houston, says Bill Fulton, director of Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research. In the future, home construction will still be less expensive here than on the coasts. But it will be more expensive than it used to be. The cost of Harvey recovery will be staggering, lawmakers